notes, that would be awesome. All right, so thanks again for joining me for the Mindset That Wins in Every Market. Again, my name is Anna Gibbs, and I'm so excited to have you with me for the next hour. I'm the general manager here at Keller Williams Hudson Valley Upstate Network, and I love being able to teach and share knowledge and experience with our agents and agents across the industry so that we can all achieve more success together. And I thought that this would be a topic that most people would want to dig into. And in case you're joining us and you're not in the real estate industry, that's fine, because we're not talking about anything real estate specific. What we are talking about is something that is part of being a human being, and that's understanding how our mind works and really understanding a little bit more about mindset. And more importantly, what is the mindset that will help you win in every market? And, we're fortunate at Keller Williams that we do talk a lot about personal development along with professional development. Our founder, Gary Keller, wrote a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which some of you may have read. And if you haven't, even if you're not in real estate, I would highly recommend it because it's truly a blueprint for building a successful, sustainable business. And the interesting thing is that Gary devoted, I think, the first 99 pages to mindset because it is truly that important to our success in business and really in life. And so we're going to talk about it. We're going to understand what mindset is. And we're also going to look at some of the habits that you can incorporate into your day that will help you have that winning mindset, that will help you navigate whatever changes are coming through the market, through the economy, or even in your life. And I think that this is a really important skill set to have. So I just want to thank Aaron Chambers, who's going to help me with the slides. So Aaron, if we go to the next slide. Oops, I'm not sure what that is. Okay, so here's a question, and I'm going to have you all take a second and answer this question. And please use the chat. If you could put your thoughts in the chat, that would be great. What separates high achievers from the rest of the crowd? So when you think about whether it is in real estate or any industry, what is it that really has this person who is performing at such a high level? What has them really rising above the rest? Why are some people more successful than others? So if you could take a second and put some things in the chat for me, that would be great. Okay, so we see work ethic, diligence, discipline. Sure, they take action, definitely drive. Yep. Trust, accountability, motivation. Excellent. So, here's the thing. You're all right. You're all correct. But I would say that all of those things might fall under one umbrella. And so if you can click for me, Aaron, the one thing that really separates everyone, the high achievers from everyone else, is their mindset. And I think that what we have to understand about mindset is it is a combination of a lot of things. So, Aaron, if we go to the next slide. And the agents who win today aren't just skilled, but they are adaptable, focused, and intentional in how they think. So, those are three key words we're going to come back to today if you're taking notes: adaptable, focused, and intentional. Okay, Aaron, I'll just give my finger a little. There you go. So, how is our mindset formed? How is our mindset formed? Our mindset, we go back one slide. Our mindset is a collection of deeply held beliefs, attitudes, and assumptions that shape how we interpret, interact with, and respond to the world. So let's just stop there for a minute and kind of unpack this a little bit. So, our mindset is a collection of deeply held beliefs. All the things that you have experienced up until this very moment, your heredity, your upbringing, the influence of your parents and your family, what you learned in school, what you experienced through trial and error, every thing that you participated in sports or in other groups, every position you've ever held, every person you've spoken to, whatever you've read, whatever you have allowed to come through your filter is going to have an effect on your belief system. And so your beliefs become the rules you live by. And then those beliefs form attitudes or perspectives about how we look at the world. And we decide through that filter what is going to align with our beliefs and what might not. And then because of all of that, right, we make some assumptions, we make judgments, and all of this is going to shape how we interpret, interact with, and respond to the world around us. The interesting thing is we're all here on this planet at the same time, and we're all having a very different experience. And I can bring that in very small and say that if we were all, well, even on this Zoom call, we're all having a very different experience. If we were all standing in the same room together at the same event, we could be having a very different experience because of all those filters. And what this does is it acts as a mental lens. Again, built from the past experiences, social conditioning, and personality traits that we've developed. And that's what dictates our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. And that's what makes up our mindset. So we can break this down further into two parts. Mindsets generally fall along these two groups. So either you have a fixed mindset or you have a growth mindset. Now, a fixed mindset believes that abilities and intelligence are sort of static. In other words, what you know is about all you're ever going to know, and that you're not going to have a lot of room to grow. And that can cause individuals to really sort of play small and maybe not be as risk forward, may not be willing to put themselves out there. They tend to avoid different challenges because they're probably trying to avoid some failure. But then there are those of us who have a growth mindset. And that growth mindset has us believing that talents and skills can be developed through effort and learning, and that we can lead to a desired outcome when we embrace our challenges. So, right now, I just want you to think about where you are. Do you believe that you're operating from a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? And I think if we want to be really honest about this, what I want to help everyone understand is that your mindset may be growth minded overall, and many of you probably identify as a growth minded individual. But is it possible that at some times in your life, based on what's happening around you, you might develop a fixed mindset? Could that be true? If you agree with me, put in the chat, could be true. And if you've ever experienced that before and you're willing to share that along with me, just put it in the chat and say, could be true. So that's important for us to realize that even the most growth-minded individuals might have moments where their mindset is very fixed. And I think that was another reason why I wanted to share this with you and teach this class today, because I believe that we are living in a world that is moving very quickly. And I believe that we have a lot of things coming at us, a lot of information, and there are a lot of responses that we might have to what's happening around us. And so there may be a possibility where at a moment you move out of thinking in terms of growth and sort of see it in a fixed way. And we sort of put a lid on our thinking. And so hopefully by the end of our time together, you might find some ways to pop the lid. All right. So thank you again, Aaron. Let's go to the next slide. So the market is always changing, and we know that. That's not new, right? We've understood that to be the case. If any of you have been in business or real estate specifically for any longer than a few months, you know that the market is always changing. Yes or no? Say true in the chat. And so what has changed when we say that the market is always changing? I think for us to understand a lot of things around technology has changed, and it changes very rapidly. I think that the speed of information has gotten faster and faster. I think another thing you could put in your notes around what has changed, the amount of distractions. How many of you agree with that? That we just have more and more distractions pulling at us than maybe we did ever before. And I think that, again, there's a lot of noise, but if we could get clear about what the type of noise is, sometimes there's noise around the market, sometimes there's noise around what's happening in the world. And so sometimes that noise hits us on a logical level, and sometimes it hits us on an emotional level. And so when it hits us on an emotional level, our responses could be different. And so I think by unpacking this and understanding this, we might become better apt to offset some of the things that we're hearing and seeing through knowing how to adapt. And so when we know that the world is always changing, I don't think that becomes the challenge anymore. And I think a lot of times we get stuck on saying the challenge is the market. The challenge is this crazy world we live in, right? That's not the challenge because we have to embrace the fact that that is always the case. It's always been the case. I mean, just think about how much the world has changed in your lifetime, right? So the world is always changing and the world has always been kind of noisy. Might be a little noisier right now because we have access to so much more information. But the real challenge isn't that. And it's not the market. It's staying aligned with it. It's understanding what this means for you, right? How many of you agree with that? It's really understanding how you respond to it. So we're going to talk about really, I think, your thinking in two different ways. So we can go to the next slide, Erin. And what I want to break down is the fact that there are times when we can think very logically, and then there are times when we can think very emotionally. And so, well, I'm going to start with the emotional thinking because I think that we can probably all agree that we've been there before. So, when we think about emotional thinking, um, what are some things that you might say, or maybe it's not this group. I mean, it's probably not you. It could be other people, other members of your industry. But if someone were to be responding to what's happening in the market right now, in the economy, maybe even in the world, what are some things that they might say that sounds very emotional? It's probably gonna sound like it's about everyone and everything else, right? So if you have some examples, use the chat. I'm here with you in the chat. So what are some things that you might hear people say that helps you to say, oh, that's really emotional thinking? There are no listings in this market. Yeah, no one wants to list their house. No one wants to sell. True, Lori. Definitely an emotional statement. What else? Everything is so hard, definitely. You know, where they put the emphasis on everything, everything is so hard. Yeah. Whenever you hear or you find yourself saying everything, no one, all of it, right? I think that's starting to reveal to you that you're really probably on an emotional path because you're seeing it in such a big, overwhelming way. Abraham said the market is tough. Yep, sure. People can't afford to buy homes. I'm worried I might be outbid on this property. Yeah, for sure. You know, I think whenever we hear things like people aren't buying, no one's taking my call, no one's interested, I'll wait until, right? So what we're doing is when we find ourselves in this emotional thought pattern, we're giving away our power. And what we're doing is allowing ourselves to blame everything on the external world, which might feel good in the moment. Maybe you don't even realize it. It's being done on such a subconscious level, but it kind of feels good in the moment because we can say, well, it's not my fault. It's everything else out there and it's everyone else out there. But as we break it down today, do you realize how that means you're just giving away your power? Because logical thinking is now putting you back in the driver's seat for you to be able to take a step back and just assess what's happening around you. And then for you to determine based on that, right? It's data, it's information, it's data. So based on what you're seeing and you're learning and you're observing, now you can create a response without emotion, but with logic. So, what might be an example of a more logical thought pattern when we think about what's going on in our industry, in our market, in the economy? You can use the chat again. What would be a difference there? I'm going to give you a clue. It might be in the form of a question. A lot of times when we are in an emotional state of thinking, we are making statements like many of you shared. When we move into logic and we are taking inventory of what's happening around us and we are observing and collecting data, a lot of times that should spur us into curiosity. And then we start to ask questions, right? Yes, thank you. Carell says I use facts when logical thinking, definitely. Lori said interest rates are still low compared to the historical average. So she's allowing the data to help her see the reality. Maybe a question you might ask yourself when you're in this logical thinking could be, and jot these down, based on what I'm learning, what activities should I focus on right now? Maybe it's what does the data really tell me? What is the market showing me in terms of a strategy? Yes, let me strategize to gain more listings. Love that, Kevin. Right? And I think one of the most important questions, if you walk away with anything today, here it is. Write this down. What can I control today? What can I control in this moment? What can you control in this moment? So, Aaron, let's go to the next slide. So, your business doesn't respond to how you feel, it responds to what you do consistently. Now, I know this might seem a little bit tough to digest because I think for a lot of us we could see how our responses could affect our business. Absolutely true. But your business will only grow. That's what I mean by responding. Your business is only going to grow based on what you do consistently. So if you're worrying consistently, if you're thinking negatively consistently, if you're thinking in a limited way consistently, do you see how that could put a lid on your goals or on your business, no matter what business or personal goals even that might be? Your growth will respond to the things that you do consistently. So here's what I want to do is I want to give you a couple minutes, 2, 3 minutes, and you can work on your own and you don't necessarily have to share it unless you want to. You can feel free to come off of mute or put it in the chat. But I would love for you to write this question down and I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think about it and just kind of journal it out. And here's the question. Where have you been reacting lately? Where have you been reacting lately instead of leading or instead of thinking logically? Where have you been reacting lately versus thinking logically? Just take a minute or two and jot it down. You already know the answer. Your answer is probably revealing something to you. Again, if does anyone want to share? And it's okay if you don't. Where might you be reacting lately instead of leading or thinking logically? And as you start to look at your answers and think about that question, I'm sure you might start to realize, based on what I said a few minutes ago, is that you may be spending too much time in the external factors of what's going on, maybe even allowing what's going on externally to control your thinking versus internal leadership. And that's why I framed the question the way I did about where have you been reacting instead of leading? Because we have to take responsibility for leading ourselves. And if we're going to have a conversation about mindset, I think we have to take a minute and talk a little bit about personal accountability. And we have to talk about self-leadership. And that's really a big part of this is just as you become more aware of your thoughts and you start to understand how your mindset is formed, and you start to understand this difference between emotional thinking and logical thinking, and we talked about the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. You really should be at a point right now where you realize a lot of this is all in your control. And that's good news, because if you felt like you were a little bit out of control, like things were out of your control, you get to take back the steering wheel today. You get back in the driver's seat and start to understand how you have the ability now to look at what's going on internally and to take back your power so that you can make decisions that support you and support your goals. Because, and write this down, you are responsible for your results, no one else. You are responsible for your results. It's not the economy's fault. It's not because the industry is unstable. It is not because of interest rates. There are so many people who are crushing it right now and having maybe the best year ever. And that's only, and they're living in the same market, right? We talked about that at the beginning of the call. We're all living in the same space, but having different experiences. And it's because of our thinking. And so, again, I would write this down. My thoughts create my reality. My thoughts create my reality. And so, if we bring it all in and we put everything that we've been talking about in the soup pot together, and we acknowledge that, yes, the world is moving faster than ever, and it's noisier than ever, and it's crazier than ever, right? Whatever adjective you want to throw on there. Okay, true. Can you continue to build a successful, sustainable business? Can you continue to grow and evolve as a person regardless of all of that? And the answer is yes, because self-leadership is the differentiator in a noisy world. Self-leadership is the differentiator in a noisy world. So I guess what we're trying to say here is stop looking outside of yourself for certainty. If you're looking for certainty, it's right in here because that's built internally. And I think another thing I would write in my notes is control creates confidence. The more control you assert back into your business, back into your life, back into your thinking, back into your choices, your decisions, that is going to build your confidence. And I believe I've actually talked about this a lot recently. I used to think a long time ago that if I talked to myself and mustered up my confidence, I would do it. I would do whatever it was, or I would do more. And what I believe now that is true is the more I do, the more I take action, the more I take responsibility, the more my confidence grows. Confidence comes through your actions, not the other way around. So, what can you control today? Take a second and I want you to write down that question. What can I control today? Maybe that becomes your question of the day every morning. I don't know. So, what can you control today? So, come off mute because I want to make sure that you're all still here with me and I'm not just talking to myself. What can you control today? You can put on the lens of a business owner, real estate agent. You can look at it through your own, life as a whole, whatever. What can you control today? Carolyn, I saw you come off mute. What came to mind? Did you have something you wanted to share or no?
No,
Sorry.
we were literally coming off of mute.
Yes, come off of mute. What can you control today, Carolyn? What comes to mind for you?
Oh God, Anna. Um, I I don't know. I mean, just about anything that I want to try to do, I suppose.
Can
Um,
can you control what you think?
um, I think I can.
Yes,
I
the
think
answer
I
is an
can.
affirmative yes.
Yes,
So,
I
and
can.
I appreciate that response because I think a lot of people sort of struggle with that, right?
Mhm.
Because I think that we're conditioned to believe that our thinking might be out of our control. But I'm here to tell you affirmatively that your brain is here to serve all of you and you can control what you think. So, thank you, Carolyn.
Welcome.
Lori.
I I was thinking about this. You can absolutely control what you choose to read and absorb and where you choose to spend your time, especially on social media. You know, the type of things that you're immersing yourself with. Sadly, now our five closest friends are probably all on social media, and they even on social media they dictate how we show up in the world and who we become. So I think just filtering is really important, and you can control that.
100%. I couldn't agree more. So we talked about controlling your thoughts. Lori just shared controlling, what you're being exposed to in terms of information and who. Who are you spending the most time with? Who are you talking to a lot? Because we do tend to adapt other people's thoughts and without even realizing it sometimes. And sometimes that can be great, and other times we realize it might be affecting us. And so I think what that really is about is your environment, right? We have to think of it, of the fact that we can control our environment. You can control what you're listening to, who you're listening to, what you're looking at, what you're reading, what you're taking in, and then how to process it, what you're going to think about it for sure. Anybody else want to share something you can control today? Can you control your schedule? I know some days you don't believe you can, but you can. You can control your schedule. You can say yes and you can say no to things. And, I say no is a complete sentence. You don't need to over explain it. You can just say no, thank you. But you can control your schedule. You can control how you spend your time and what activities you spend your time doing, which we're going to get to in a sec. Can you control your follow-up? Can you control your lead generation? Can you control the mission, vision, and values of your business? Yes, yes, and yes. So there's a lot more that you can control versus what you can't control. And I think that is the beginning of taking your power back as well. When you realize that you do have a lot more autonomy, you have a lot more control, you have a lot more choice than what you may have been giving yourself credit for. All right, so let's go on to the next slide and talk about some of these things that we can control. And I want to break it down because, listen, we're all business people. So I want to bring it back to real practical thoughts that help you move the needle in your business. Because I know I can geek out on all the theory as a coach, but I want to bring it back to what are the DPAs or the dollar producing activities? And this could be a game changer for a lot of us because one of the things that I want you to write in your notes is that busy does not equal productive. Don't mistake movement for results. My definition of productivity is any activity that gets you closer to your goal. So, look, we can find ourselves being very busy, having very full calendars, and yet maybe not feeling as productive on every single day. We did a lot, we moved a lot, but it doesn't mean that we were productive. And it's funny because, just to give you an aside, my husband always knows when he sees me at the end of the day and asks me how my day was, and I go, it was all right. He's like, oh, you were just busy today, weren't you? Because when I don't feel productive, I just feel like I haven't done enough to move the needle, right? So it's an awareness. So let's talk about some dollar producing activities because what we focus on does expand. And I want you to also write this down too, everyone. I want you to focus less on the outcome and more on the activity. And I know for some of you that might feel a little off or counterintuitive because I get it. We're all results driven and we know we have certain outcomes that we want to achieve. And I get that. But sometimes we can be so focused on the outcome that we lose sight of progress and we lose sight of process. And the process is really where you want to put your energy because in the process or focusing on the activities is going to create the habits, the consistency, and that's what's going to bring you the outcome anyway. So take your focus off the outcome and let's focus more on the activities and the ones that will produce dollars for you in your business. So we'll go to the next slide. Consistency creates stability in uncertain environments. So one of the things that I can tell you back in the beginning of the COVID era, and I know you're all tired of hearing about COVID, but it was such a big uh, teacher, I think, for us. We jumped into action as a company and we really focused on communication. We focused on making sure our associates and agents really had a plan. And we talked a lot about what was in your control and what was not in your control, and helping people put the focus back on what is in control, in their control. And really keeping that momentum going, because the consistency is what you want to focus on. That will create stability in uncertain times, right? So that no matter what happens in the market or the economy, which is always changing and always will be changing, your own systems, your own way of thinking will create the consistency that will balance you and give you the stability to navigate any of those changes. So we can go on to the next slide. Because again, I just said this a minute ago, what we focus on expands. So if you choose to focus on the challenge and the problem, you're going to feel it all the time. You're going to see nothing but challenges and problems, and you're going to feel the weight of that. If you focus on the solutions, you're going to generally probably become more curious and ask better questions. You're going to research and get more information. You're going to allow yourself to think about and ask questions around what the data is showing you. And that's where you want your focus to be. So wherever you put your focus is going to just become bigger in your life. And that's, again, if there was one thing or now two things that you could take away from today, it's that one. It's that whatever you choose to, wherever you put your energy, wherever you choose to put your focus, that's going to determine your results. And so you have all the power, and you always have. So, what do we need to focus on? What are the dollar producing activities for you in your business right now? And I know some of you may or may not be in real estate on this call, because we put this out far and wide because we just want to help and bring education to people in businesses around us. So just take a second and make a short list or a long list. What are the things that you should be focused on right now for you in your business that you would consider a dollar producing activity? And again, if you want to put it in the chat or come off mute and share, I definitely appreciate that. What are some dollar producing activities that may be the same for anyone in any business? Yep, lead generation came in, control your health. I like that. What else? Having daily conversations that build relationships. Absolutely. I see a lot of lead generation. So you guys are right on the money, calling your sphere for sure. So lead generation and follow up, I would say, would be true for probably any of us. Those are dollar producing activities. Here's another one that's probably true for, again, all of us. Appointments. Appointments drive income, because we can have a lot of these conversations and lead generate or call our sphere and share information about what we do and how we do it or the market. But remember, you want to convert. So just keep in mind that being on an appointment is a dollar producing activity, right? Yes, writing contracts for sure. Exceptional customer service or client service. Yes, absolutely. So I think if you can become more aware of what your dollar producing activities are, then it raises awareness around, am I focused on that every day? How much of my day am I devoting to? Because we just talked about the fact that you can control your time and you can control your schedule. So how much time is showing up on your calendar for these dollar producing activities? And when we talk about priority, those are your priorities. Your priorities are if we talk about the 80/20 rule or big rocks, whatever your lingo is, it's the dollar producing activities. It's the things that you focus on that bring the results. So now that you have an idea of some dollar producing activities, and maybe you have other things on your list, remember that consistency builds confidence. and not the other way around. And so you want to make sure that these things are showing up all the time. And I want to ask you this question. It's not in the slide though, Erin. Here's the question. What are your three non-negotiable activities each day? So if you have a list in front of you, put a star next to the three non-negotiables that you should be focused on every day for dollar producing activities. And because what we focus on expands, I'm just curious, if you put your energy around those three things day after day, how would the world look around you? How would your thinking start to shift in about 2 weeks? How would things start to change in 30 days? If that was a consistent approach and you built a habit around consistently focusing on those three activities day in and day out, do you think you might feel like you have more control and more power over your own destiny? Because those three activities that you just put a star next to, you said were your non-negotiables, and you said that those are dollar producing activities. So would things start to change in your life and in your business? And what effect, what profound effect would that have on you? What would your life look like in 6 months? Doesn't take a lot of time to see big results. Sometimes it's just the consistency. Okay, Erin, thanks. We'll go to the next slide. Yeah, because here it is, guys. Constant inputs equal distractions, comparisons, and overwhelm. In other words, what you're putting in from the outside, all those messages, all that, information, other people's thoughts and opinions, all that inputting could equal distractions, comparisons, and overwhelm, especially if you're hanging out on social media for too long. So what we want to do is, we'll go to the next slide. We want to put our energy around what we can control internally. And remember that your clarity isn't found, it's created. I've been coaching for a long time, almost 2 decades, and it's amazing how people, when I pay attention to the language patterns people use, people will say to me, "I'm seeking clarity." It's not something you're going to find, it's something you have to create. Clarity is right here at your fingertips. Sometimes we choose to look away and it's still sitting there, it's sitting right there waiting for you to see it. So it's not something you're going to find. Clarity is something you create and you create it through intention. You create it through your thoughts. You create it through your choices and decisions and you create it with those choices and decisions around what you put your energy towards, what you focus on. And that is all shaping your mindset. So maybe I think there's at least one of you right now who's starting to see the contrast between maybe how you've been living the last few weeks or months or years, I don't know, versus what it could look like in the next couple of weeks. And it doesn't have to take years to see a major shift in mindset. Okay, so what matters most to you today? I think that's an important question we've mentioned a few times. I would say if you're going to take something out of your notes, that might be one thing. And here's the next one. What do you need to take to the next level? Because I'm not here assuming that any of you are failing in the mindset department. I think that you're on this call because you are growth minded. I think you're on this call because you probably have a pretty solid mindset. And I also think we always have room to ask ourselves, what's next? Can we go to the next level? So, what is the next level for you personally? What's the next? Just write this question down, put a big star next to it, circle it, because this might take a little more time where you want to really think about it. And I totally respect that. But what is the next level for you? In business, in your thinking, in your habits, right? You can take that question and apply it to multiple areas of your life. What is the next level for you in terms of your health, in terms of your finances? What is the next level for you? And I just want that to sit for a sec. Okay. Who's who's learned something or who feels like they were reminded of something? Who feels like they definitely got something out of being with me so far today? Can you just give me some love in the chat? A heart, a thumbs up, a something, a smiley face. I mean, you didn't disconnect, so I think you're getting something. That's good to know. All right, we're going to kind of shift gears slightly as we wrap up our time together. I want to give you, and I don't think I have any slides on this, Erin, so it's okay. I think there's one more slide. These are some habits of agents that win in any market. Because as I said, I wanted to promise you that you would leave here with some things that you could implement in your business, not just only affecting your thinking, but things that you could actually be doing. And if you're not a real estate agent, you can just say that these are the habits of any successful business or entrepreneur. And so, what are some of these habits? So you're going to take some notes here. I think number one, they do prioritize those dollar producing activities. And so you've started identifying a few of them for yourself. And if you are really looking to win in any market, if you want to adopt the habits of highly effective people and successful people, then realize that they always prioritize their dollar producing activities. And that means that they do them first. That means that they understand the 80-20 rule. And that says that only about 20% of the things we focus on will give us 80% of our results. So those dollar producing activities are your 20%. And that means that you know them, you know it will drive your income, you know it will bring you results. You don't confuse them with anything else. You're clear about that and you make them your priority. You do them first, which means that you would want to have time on your calendar devoted to those DPAs or dollar producing activities. So if you, every one of you told me that lead generation was one of those activities, I guess my question to you is it on your calendar? Is there time blocked every day, no matter what business you're in? Is there time blocked every day for you to be calling your sphere, reaching into your database, talking to people who might have a need for anything you offer, educating people? Is that showing up on your calendar? So that's the first habit. I think another habit of agents that win in any market is they protect their energy and their focus. So they know what boundaries around time mean. They know what boundaries around people mean. And they're not afraid to manage distractions. They're not afraid to say, I'm really glad you called. Unfortunately, I am focused on something else right now and I can't really do this. Can I call you back at 4 o'clock? So in other words, or they don't even answer the phone really. If you're in the middle of lead gen, they're just focused on lead gen and they're not allowing distractions to show up. So I think that, again, these are the habits of people who are winning in any market. They know boundaries have to be in place around people, around time, and around distractions. Because, again, something I've heard for almost 2 decades is that most of us want to know how we can get more time in our day. I'm here to tell you, you don't need more time. You're not using the time you already have well, so why do you want more time to mess around with? What you need is to learn how to use the time you have better. What you need is to learn how to manage distractions. What you need is probably some better focus, right? Because when we tell ourselves we need more time, I don't think that's the answer. Habit number three that I could share with you, I think that people who are winning in any market are thinking long term as as they focus on what they need to do today. So all those questions that we went over a minute ago about what you can do today is super important, but they also sort of keep one eye on what could be happening in the next few weeks or the next few months. Gary Keller has always said that you're creating a game plan for the market that's coming, not the market that you're in. So there's this balance. And I think that when you look at agents or you look at business people that win in any market, they're adaptable, they can pivot, and it's because they figure out how to be present in the market at the moment, but also watching trends, watching what could be coming, creating a dialogue for themselves around that and creating a game plan. So, that's an interesting skill to develop, but that really is key. And so they might be focused on their pipeline, but they're also looking at what future revenue could be coming in, when that revenue is coming in, who else could, be a part of their sphere or added to their database. So they're balancing those two things. They're balancing on the business happening right now and looking at how to create business for the next 90 days. Because that's what creates this, right? That roller coaster ride, and you feel like your income is sort of on that roller coaster ride. You can't just put all your energy in managing the business that's right here in front of you because you need to be focused on creating new business opportunities that will keep funding you, right? That keeps bringing in income. So that's another one. The fourth habit I have in my notes, they decide and they move. They make decisions. They don't overthink. They get out of that loop of overthinking. And they know that action creates clarity and builds confidence. Action creates clarity and builds confidence. And I know that for some of us, this might be easier than for others. I know some of us are programmed to think very methodically and slow it down when it comes to decision making. But I will give you some food for thought here that, spontaneity is a learned response. You can learn to become more spontaneous. You can learn to rein in some of the thinking and make decisions a little bit quicker. Maybe you rely on different tools in order to do that. But those people who can, get out of the overthinking loop and who can really move quickly build momentum. And that momentum is what keeps us going forward. So that's why that's important. Habit number 5, you can put in your notes, they believe they can figure it out. They're resilient. They don't look, we're all human, and so we might have temporary reactions to changes in the market, shifts in the economy, news on the TV. I get that. But I think at the end of the day, high achievers, people who are positioned to win in any market condition, their mindset tells them that they believe they'll figure it out. That either they will take initiative based on their experiences, based on their skill set, the tools in their toolbox, and they'll put it into action and figure it out. Maybe they have to ask someone for help, but it doesn't matter. They just know it's figure outable. And so they know they can move forward. And that's really the key definition of resilience. Resilience is knowing that no matter what comes at you, you can figure it out. Even if at that moment it feels like you can't handle it, you kick into high gear pretty quickly and know that you can trust that you can figure it out. So I would put self-trust here in parentheses because that's a big one. You have to know that you can trust yourself. You have to know that you can say to yourself, I trust myself to handle whatever comes my way. And if anyone feels like that's not possible, shoot me an email, send me a text, and I'll be happy to talk with you because I want you to know that you can figure it out. And here's the other thing I'll say on this, and that this is not saying you have all the answers, right? I don't always have all the answers. I just trust that I can find them. I just trust that I'll figure it out, even if it means I have to call one of you for information, right? That's still me being resilient and resourceful. So I want to make that distinction too. So those are just 5 habits that I believe if you adopt, you could be the person who wins in any market. You could be the person who wins in any situation that life throws at you. I think that this is really a huge part of how we can reset, recommit when we need to shift. I think that those are some of the habits. And as we wrap up our time today, I will tell you that I think it is about identifying, and this may be another question you need in your notes right now, identifying what thinking has been holding me back, right? What are the thoughts and beliefs? Because I told you that was a big part of what makes up your mindset. So, what thoughts and beliefs have you been holding on to that have been keeping you back? From the income you say you're capable of earning, from the results that you know you're able to achieve, from the vision you've been having for your life for probably some time, for the stuff that you dream about, right? All those things. If it's not happening in your world right now, it can. It can. You just have to ask yourself how I need to shift the way I think about it. And so when you identify what thinking's been holding you back, you have an opportunity to what we call reframe it so that now your thinking is empowering you. So now your thinking is giving you some push towards progress, towards creating momentum. So it is about choice. And I will leave you with these thoughts. What choice are you making about your mindset? Are you really living in a growth mindset every day, or have you been stuck in a fixed mindset? And it's okay wherever you find yourself. If I could give you a little hug, I would do that right now. I'm going to give you a hug. It's okay. Just know where you are and figure out now what you have to do to move forward. Because when you stay focused on those $3 producing activities, and I've only given you a couple little nuggets today. I mean, we could have a whole half day workshop on mindset, but I wanted to just give you a few things that I thought could be more important for you at this moment. And I think it's understanding what mindset is, recognizing the mindset you're in at the moment, knowing how to shift out of it, knowing that what you focus on expands. So if you're going to focus on something, let's focus on dollar producing activities. Let's get clear. Let's keep the list small, two or three things. You've already identified them. Get them on your calendar. Know that they have to happen first. Put your energy around the activities. Don't worry about the outcome. The outcome will come. And you'll see how everything starts moving and changing. And that's really the key. And the last thing I think is important that we have to say is accountability to all this, because I, like you, have gone to a lot of great classes and workshops, listen to podcasts, read the books, all the things. And what will allow some of what you heard today show up in your world, show up in your life, and what will help you make it a habit. There's a time that has to be in between today and the day that it feels like a habit, right? So you have to work on this. And so in that time, in that gap, you have to know how to hold yourself accountable. But I will say, you really need a partner to hold yourself accountable. And because you'll let yourself off the hook on some days, you'll rationalize it. You might get too hard on yourself and shut down. But if you could find that one person who could hold you accountable, then that person, they're not attached to your outcomes. They're not, focused on the same things in your business as you are. They just will be there to ask you some key questions about progress. And a coach can be a great person in your world to do that with. It could be a peer partner. I think that it's important to pick the right accountability partner. And if you have any questions on that, reach out to me. But I think having accountability is the secret sauce in making all of this sticky and making it really work for you. So I hope you realize now you don't really need a different market. And you don't necessarily need to learn new skills, and you don't necessarily need a lot more information. I think to get back in alignment, it's knowing that you can control your thoughts and that you can start to focus on things that will change your results and move you towards what you say you want. And that's really what I think is happening for agents who have the right mindset and win in any market. It's not so, it's pretty simple. It might feel like it's a bit of a shift at first, but it's pretty simple. And so the agents who win in every market are not doing more. They might be selling more, but why are they selling more? It's because of how they think. And I think that when you change the way you think, you'll change your results, you'll change your world. And that's really my goal, is to just, I think, challenge how people think. And so I'm appreciative of you being here. And I just want to open it up in case you have any ahas or thoughts or questions, anything at all that you want to share. I'm happy to hear from you. All right. Anyone? Well, thank you again for being here. I trust that you've got a lot of information in your notes and in your mind right now. So give yourself a couple minutes, if you could, before you go on to the next thing, and just, circle, star, highlight whatever you can in your notes. And if there is a question I ask that you want to give yourself more time, identify it, make a plan for it. Because, again, we get all this great information, and sometimes we move so fast to the next task that we don't give ourselves an opportunity to absorb it and make a plan. So if you can do that for yourself right now, go ahead and do that. Or if you can get to it before the end of the day, that will make a huge difference. So thanks for joining me, Erin. Thanks for your help today. Everyone, I look forward to seeing you make great things happen for the rest of this year. And if I can help, my email is agibbs, the number 2 at kw.com, or you can call me or text me at 845-649-1055. Thanks and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.